Whether it's on comic strips, cartoons, or even on the big screen, we've all become accustomed to the sight of Popeye the Sailorman. In fact, this super strong squabbling sailor is so iconic, he even had a bronze statue erected in his form in Chester, Illinois. In 2002, TV Guide even ranked Popeye the 20th greatest cartoon character of all time, but for all his fame, there's one aspect of Popeye that's remained relatively untold. The fact that he was actually based on a real man. So, who was the real Popeye and how exactly did he end up becoming one of the world's most known cartoon characters? To uncover this tale, we've got to first head back to the early 20th century. Just 1 year after World War I finished, Elsie Chrysler Segar was looking to return some joy to the world through cartoons. Segar was born in Chester, Illinois in 1894. 18 years later, in 1912, he decided to become a cartoonist. After 7 years of creating comic strips like Charlie Chaplin's Comic Capers and Barry the Boob, he got his big break, landing a job at the New York Journal. It was here where Segar devised the idea for Thimble Theatre, a comic strip featuring characters like Ham Gravy, Castor Oil and Olive Oil. The strip achieved moderate success, though it didn't pull in a huge audience. That wasn't until January 17, 1929, when Segar introduced a minor character by the name of Popeye to the comic strip. Castor Oil needed a weather-beaten sailor to navigate his ship. At first, Segar intended Popeye to be a one-off, but he was quickly restored after large numbers of newspaper readers wrote in requesting the character's return. From there, Popeye never looked back, as readers became captivated by the scrappy little seaman with bulging forearms, a squinty eye and screwed up face. Sadly, in 1938, at the age of 43, Segar died of leukemia and liver disease, but by this point Popeye was already well established. By the time of Segar's death, Popeye was running in 500 newspapers and over 600 licensed Popeye products were on sale, earning the cartoon's creator $100,000 a year. But Segar wasn't the only one to benefit from the character's success. Michael Brooks, a Popeye historian, revealed that before his death, Segar frequently sent checks to a man from Chester, Illinois, off the back of Popeye's success. That may seem strange at first, but the man he sent money to was pivotal in the creation of one of the world's most loved cartoon characters. The recipient of Segar's checks was Frank Rocky Fiegel, the man who he based the character of Popeye off. While Fiegel likely inspired Segar's Popeye character, the viral photograph frequently attached to this claim doesn't actually show him. The image is one of an anonymous sailor aboard the HMS Rodney. This couldn't have been inspiration for Popeye. Firstly, this man was serving in the British Navy, so would likely never come into contact with Segar in the US. Secondly, the photo was taken in 1940, 11 years after Popeye was introduced to the world, and 2 years after Segar had passed. In his book Popeye, An Illustrated Cultural History, author Fred Grandinetti explains who the real Popeye actually was. The law of Chester, Illinois holds that the character of Popeye was inspired by town resident Frank Rocky Fiegel. Lee Huffstutler, herself a Chester local, makes and well supports this argument. According to Huffstutler, Rocky Fiegel was of Polish descent and lived with his mother in a house near the Evergreen Cemetery. Mrs. Huffstutler describes him as tall, strong, always ready for a fight, and always a winner. Fiegel had that same prominent chin as Popeye, while a corncob pipe was virtually sealed to his mouth. However, contrary to popular belief, Frank Fiegel wasn't a sailor like Popeye. Instead, he worked as a barkeep at a saloon. When he finished his shift, he'd have a few drinks of liquor, not spinach, and head outside to puff on his pipe. Fiegel also had a reputation for being every bit as fearless and tough as the cartoon character. His nephew went as far as saying, he never feared anything that walked on 2 feet. Aside from the tough exterior, Fiegel was also renowned for looking after the town's kids. His nephew also tells the story of the time his uncle spotted one of the townsmen beating one of the neighbourhood boys. When Rocky started coming after him, he pulled a knife, but Rocky kept coming. In the ensuing fracas, his uncle was slashed across the forehead, but it didn't keep him from protecting other kids from the bullies of the world. It's fair to say Fiegel's unique appearance, along with his kind heart, served as the perfect recipe for Seeger's ingenious creation. Sadly though, by the time of the real Popeye's death in March 1947, he went down with little more than a whimper. When Fiegel was buried, he was given an unmarked grave next to where his mother was buried, a measly memorial for someone that contributed so significantly to millions of lives. Thankfully, nearly 50 years later, in 1996, Fiegel's grave was finally modified to include a headstone featuring a carved depiction of Popeye. And with that, Frank Rocky Fiegel, the man that contributed to one of cartoon's classic characters, got the recognition that his storied life deserved.